So today we're talking about Chapter 7, Lesson 4. So far, we used models to find a part of a whole. Then we decided to call that part of a whole a fraction of a whole, right? We used models to find a fraction of a whole. And then we said, when we're finding a fraction of a whole, we're really doing what? Multiplication. We're multiplying a fraction by a whole number. That's the journey we've been on so far. Today what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the models, but we are using models to multiply fractions. So instead of a fraction times a whole number, we're going to be doing fractions times fractions, but we're using a model. Okay? Some of you, I think, have some background info on how to multiply fractions by fractions, but if I asked you to draw a picture of it, would you be able to draw a picture of it for me right now? No, you just know the formula of what to do, right? So today we're going to take a closer look, because until you can draw a picture to explain it, you don't really know why you do what you do. Okay? So again, today's learning goal is to multiply fractions using models. But first, of course, we have to talk about the problem of the day. So we know Jane needs 3/4 of a yard of cloth to make the grocery bag, but only 2/3 of that amount to make her lunch bag. So that's why we knew she needs 2/3 of the grocery bag amount, which happens to be 3/4. So that's 2/3 of 3/4. We know in math the word of really means multiplication. So 2/3 of 3/4 is the math equation 2/3 times 3/4. So now we have to figure out, okay, how can I use a model to show 2/3 of 3/4? So we counted that there's 12 squares in all, right? Based on our folds. Now, what fraction of the whole entire yard does one little square represent? Yarden? 1/12. Good. Now, let's count the sections that are shaded twice and record the answer. How many sections are shaded twice? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 rectangles that are shaded twice. So that's 6 out of a total of how many squares? So that's 6/12, otherwise known as 1/2. Oops, 1/2. That means that 2/3 times 3/4, or 2/3 of 3/4, is equal to 1/2 of a yard. Okay, so Jane needs 1/2 of a yard to make a lunch bag. In order to do 1/3 times 3/4, Marguerite first drew a circle and divided it into 4 equal sections. Go ahead and do that in your math notebook. Okay, so she's first said, okay, I'm going to shade in 3/4 of this circle because I'm finding 1/3 of the 3/4. So go ahead and shade in 3/4 of the circle. How many 1/4 pieces do you need to shade in order to shade in 3/4 of the whole circle? Arushi? Yeah, we have to shade in 3 1/4 pieces. Okay, now in order to find 1/3 of 3/4, because we know that this multiplication sign really means of, so in order to find 1/3 of the 3/4, we have to circle one of those 3 pieces, right? So go ahead and circle one of the 3 pieces you just shaded in. Now, looking back at the whole circle, how much of the whole circle did you circle? 1/4 of the whole, right? So therefore, 1/3 of 3/4 is 1/4. Okay, so looking at this model, we can see now that 1/3 of 3/4 is equal to 1/4 of the whole. Okay. James was also solving the same problem, 1/3 of 3/4, or 1/3 times 3/4. But what he did was he also started by drawing a circle and dividing it into 4 equal parts. Okay. Then he decided to shade in the model to show 3/4 of the whole. So how many sections does he have to shade in? 3. So 1, 2, 3. Then he was like, well, I'm going to divide each piece into thirds because I want to find 1/3 of this piece, 1/3 of this piece, and 1/3 of this piece. Does that make sense? So he wants to divide each of those circles into 3 equal pieces. So like this. Or each of those fourths into 3 equal pieces like this. Even including the one that he did not shade in. Okay. Now, how many total pieces of that circle are there now? What part of the whole is each small piece? Yeah, it's 1/12. It's 1 out of 12 total small pieces. Now to find 1/3 of 3/4, circle 1/3 of each of the 1/4 pieces. So in this 1/4 quadrant, let's circle 1/3 of those right here. And then we'll circle one of these thirds and one of these thirds. So how many of those 12th size pieces did we circle? 3. So we circled 3 1/12 pieces. So 1/3 times 3/4 is 3/12, otherwise known as 1/4. Okay. So looking at James and Marguerite's examples, you can see two different ways to model the same math problem. Right now I want you to talk to your table group. What's the same and what's different about Marguerite and James's ways?
They both arrived at the same answer.
Okay, so Marguerite and James both arrived at the same answer despite doing different modeling ways.
However, James, he arrived at 3/12, which has to be simplified.
Why did James arrive at 3/12, which had to be simplified, before he got to the same answer of 1/4? Liam?
He divided each fourth into more parts.
Right, he divided each fourth into how many parts each?
3 parts.
3 parts each. Why do you think he did that? Nathan?
Because the denominator is 3.
Because he was trying to find 1/3 of each fourth, right? So, is one way better than the other?
Sometimes.
Huh, what do you mean sometimes? Why might one way be better than the other? Sarah?
I honestly prefer James's way because Marguerite's way. In this case, it was like perfect because there were 3/4, and she was trying to find 1/3 of 3/4. In James's way, you can do it with any scenario.
So Marguerite just lucked out in that her numbers worked out nicely for her way in this case, right? But either way will work. You just have to be precise in your work and make sure that you know what you're doing, okay? And you have a reason to justify the way you're doing it.